Hello everyone, Sylvan Bard here, or you can call me Sully.
Oops, sorry everyone. I believe I forgot to add the sound effect for when I rated the Sanrio holiday specials, so let me add that in.
These specials will be given a rating of 3 stars.
There we go, now back to the show.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Everyone loves this Rankin Bass animated special from 1964, with its lovable characters, wonderful story, fun animation, and great songs. And while it still airs every year on CBS for 55 years, it has become a tradition to watch it every year, and really embrace every moment that this timeless and unforgettable classic brings us.
But then you realize that the more you watch a classic, the more you'll find out that it's not as perfect as it was.
I mean, the special is still great and fun, but you can't deny that everything in it is flawless. And unlike some holiday specials where I found little to no problems every time I watch them, I tend to find more problems than others the more I think about them. And that's what I'll be doing today. I'm going to be listing the 10 issues I have with this beloved special. Some have already been found and talked about, yet there's others that I have come across that nobody thinks twice on. And no, I'm not talking about stuff like sound effects and dialogue being delayed or not existent, or some animation goof-ups, as they're pretty common in Rankin Bass, as they are animated in Japan with everything else done in the States. I know this is going to be nothing but nitpicking and thinking too much, but I feel it's a fun idea just to discuss the flaws in an almost perfect special.
So, get ready to agree with me or not, as I go over my top 10 list of my top 10 weakest Rudolph moments.
Number 10. There's no foggy Christmas Eve. This one's generally a nitpick, but it's one that has some importance in relation to the original story and song. In both the original story by Robert L. Mays and song by Johnny Marks, it was a foggy Christmas Eve, but here there's no fog at all. It's just a big snowstorm. The 1998 Rudolph did the same thing, but that was from a Snow Queen. Here, it just came from nowhere, and the special did show fog earlier and Rudolph's nose wasn't shining then, so why change it? Is it that a snowstorm is more threatening? Yes, but if you're adapting from the original sources, couldn't you stick to the original sources? The Max Fleischer cartoon made a better adaptation of this moment, because it showed a foggy Christmas Eve, not a stormy Christmas Eve. If the lyrics were changed, it would have made more sense, but it doesn't work here. I will give it credit for doing something different, but a snowstorm seemed much worse than fog, because how are you able to fly through it enough to reach the clouds? I ask you. Number 9. The use of the other reindeer. And what I mean by that is how the cast of reindeer is handled. It may seem like a nitpick, but some of these reindeer, whether in the background or given small roles or even a side character, something about them doesn't add up. We all know Santa's 8 reindeer to pull his sleigh, but only 2 are mentioned here, Donner and Comet, who is more of a defining character than the rest of the reindeer. And even when Santa takes off into the sky, why is Donner left behind? Shouldn't he be up there with his team and son? The 98 version didn't do that. But then some reindeer just come in and never return, like Fireball, the only one with a head of red hair and freckles. But he never comes back in the story, even when Rudolph is all grown up. So why is he here outside of giving Rudolph a friend? And what about the does? Clarice is the only one with a lovable persona and accessory, and we don't get to see much of the other does, and not much of the young bucks as well. Even when Rudolph walks with Clarice, her father comes in and I'm wondering, who's this guy? Is he one of Santa's lead reindeer or some other buck? And he's never seen again, and Clarice's mother seems to be absent. In fact, Clarice's father sounds like Donner, so is this Donner? Is he having an affair? Would Clarice be Rudolph's long-lost sister? Actually, no, why would that be? At least with the 1998 Rudolph movie, we get to see all the reindeer present and who's who. But with how the reindeer here are treated, I feel like wanting to know more about them and even see more of them. Yet there's only a few of them with character and personality, and I understand that they're not the focus, but with there being so many of them, I would like to see almost every one of them treated better. And this is coming from a special where the reindeer have more in common with regular deer as opposed to caribou, which are what real reindeer are. Number 8. Sam sent Yukon and Hermie after Rudolph. Okay, this may sound odd, but let me explain. The narrators for the Rankin Bass specials, outside of being caricatures of the celebrity voicing them, are usually the observers within the story they're telling, and rarely do they interact with the characters, and when they do, they serve as a nice bit to the story, making them more of a character in the story than having them tell it after it all happened. Yet here with Sam the Snowman, there's one part that bothered me with him being the storyteller and a character within the story. It's when Sam explains that Yukon Cornelius and Hermie went out looking for Rudolph, and they arrived in Christmastown just as the storm hit. And then he added, and it was a good thing that I sent them after Rudolph. Yet my question is, when did that happen? We never see a scene where Yukon and Hermie met Sam, we're only told that they came across each other. In fact, a couple of Sam's narrations seem off, like saying the Bumble hates Christmas, even though nothing about him indicates it, and saying Rudolph and Hermie had to get the women back to Christmastown, completely ignoring Donner. But this one part kind of bugs me for how it came out of nowhere, and it's just explained and not shown, as it's the only time in this special that anything like that ever happened. In my opinion, I think it's best to have Sam as the storyteller than be part of the story he's telling, because continuity-wise, it makes little to no sense what he did here. Number 7. Bumble's Bounce! Some, if not most of you, might wonder what this is about, and really, it's something that's kind of worth mentioning. After Hermie removed the Bumble's teeth, making him to appear not as threatening anymore, Yukon and his dogs go after the monster, scaring him up to the edge of a cliff, and they fall over. Rudolph, Hermie, and the others left feeling sad at what they feel was a lost friend, until, like about a minute after Yukon fell, Yukon comes back with the Bumble, and he states that Bumble's bounce. How? And he didn't even mention it before? Yukon seems to be like an expert on these creatures and what to do when encountering them. He knows how to outrun them, he knows they quickly sink, he even communicates with them when saying that the Bumble wants to help decorate the tree for Christmas. But where did this bouncing Bumble business come from? The cliffside didn't look that deep, and how could Rudolph and Hermie tell if Yukon's gone? If they had stayed longer, or if Yukon could have told them that Bumble's bounced, then all this sad feeling wouldn't have happened. And it's sort of ironic because this kind of started the I'm not dead trope, of when you're made to think a character's dead, but then they come back. Except here, it's a lot faster and sort of pointless. He didn't even mention it when they were on that piece of ice? And how did he reform that Bumble? And in the end, I don't quite see why Yukon had to do this. If he knew what he was doing, he should have made it clear to his friends. Number 6. Rudolph's parents were gone for months. For the most part, this is kind of a big issue, and the special does address the problems of this. As Rudolph returned to Christmastown all grown up, without first mooning to the people watching this, and comes home to see that his parents and Clarice went missing, and according to Santa, were gone for months. Actually, he should rephrase that. It's not that they're gone for months, it looks like they're gone for years! Between the time Rudolph left and came back, it looked like a long time has passed. And even then, why didn't Santa or anyone else go out looking for them? They must have been cold, hungry, and tired for being out that long. And why is Clarice with them? Aren't her parents worried about her? At least, again, in the 98 Rudolph, Zoe's parents are seen and mentioned. So why show Clarice's father but not the mother in this one? Their daughter is with another reindeer family, and she's seen all grown up when Rudolph returns. And was it because of them being chased and caught by the Bumble that they were gone for that long? I mean, why did it take the monster that long to get them? Almost going to eat Clarice in his cave, and how did Rudolph know where to look for them? There's this giant snowstorm in his way. Overall, this didn't provide enough information as to why and how it's like this, mainly for not showing more of Rudolph's parents and Clarice going out to getting caught by the Bumble. Yes, there is the phrase less is more, but I kind of disagree with it here, because the more you love something, the more you want to see what's not shown. Number 5. The doll's reason for being a misfit. This is the more infamous of problems with the special, and I feel it's a big deal with how the toys on the island of Misfit Toys work. We all know the island is home to toys with at least one function wrong with them, like the Jack-in-the-Box is named Charlie in the Box, a train with square wheels on its caboose, and a cowboy riding an ostrich. But one toy among them looks perfectly fine, and it's the doll. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong with her, as she looks great, sounds great, and is just as sweet. So why is she on this island? Well, thankfully, there is confirmation about it. According to the producer, Arthur Rankin Jr., he believes the doll's reason for being a misfit is that her problems are psychological. Really? If that's the case, then I don't think it comes across very well here. I mean, how and why is it that way? Nothing about her here indicates that she's psychologically hurt in any way. Even when she cries, it feels like a normal thing because we don't know how long she and the other toys stayed on the island. I think the toy soldiers who don't march forward make for better misfits. I would think that my mother's reason for the doll is a little better in that she would cry ice cubes, which would make this a little more sense. But if what Arthur Rankin says is true, then I can only end this with a quote from Woody the Cowboy. You are a toy! Number 4. Santa's a jerk. Now, some people have pointed out that Santa in this special is a pretty flawed character, and possibly the worst. And at first, I didn't get it. I mean, this is Rankin Bass's first attempt at bringing Santa to life, and later versions go in different directions. But upon watching the special again, I pretty much found out what they're talking about, and there's a few reasons why. Firstly, Santa doesn't eat his wife's cooking before Christmas. Well, judging by the look of the food is understandable. I mean, look at how gray it all is. What is it supposed to be? Even the apple is gray. Regardless, it does feel understandable as Santa's busy, yet later on, when listening to the elves' song, We Are Santa's Elves, he has a dislike for it. I mean, why? It's a good song. From the looks of it, he cares more for the reindeer than for his workers and wife's food. Yet when Santa first sees Rudolph's shiny nose, he hopes for it to go away, and blames Donner for not hiding his nose well. And then, when Santa asks Rudolph to guide his sleigh, a part of me was thinking, were there no other times when Santa needed him before? Had he had other Christmas Eves when the weather was terrible, like the ones before Rudolph was born? He never gave a second thought about the opportunity when first seeing the reindeer, so yeah, Santa here isn't as nice as we'd like him to be, with him not loving the elves' new song, being too busy with other things, not eating Mrs. Claus's dinner, and hugely ignoring Rudolph's nose until after announcing Christmas as cancelled. But there is one other character that I find to be worse than the jolly old man with the bag. Number 3. Donner's a jerk. Yeah, most people would say Santa's the worst character in this special, but to me, Donner's the worst of them all. Why? Because where Santa is Rudolph's boss and maybe friend, Donner is Rudolph's father and family member. Ever since Rudolph is first born, Donner constantly dismisses his son's nose to the point of giving him a fake nose, which Rudolph feels is uncomfortable, yet all Donner cares is that his son gets to lead Santa's sleigh. And I feel he's being a little bit hard on him, and yet Mrs. Donner doesn't get a word in. She doesn't comfort her son, she doesn't calm her husband in any way, she's kind of pointless. Yes, Donner does forgive Rudolph for acting a little rough on him, but then when Rudolph agrees to lead Santa's sleigh, Donner says, I knew that nose would be useful someday, I knew all along. Well, if you knew all along, then why didn't you mention it before? You almost caused Christmas to be cancelled if you kept Rudolph's nose from glowing. And if you thought Blitzen in the 98 version calling Rudolph's nose an accident was mean, this is a different level of mean that I never thought about. Because if Donner said Rudolph's nose is an accident, he'd be much more worse than Blitzen. So, for those who say Santa's the worst in this special, you can have that. But Donner, for being a father, is more worse in comparison. At least for me. Number 2. The Spotted Elephant is King Moonrazor's footman. Wait, what? Why is the Spotted Elephant working for Moonrazor? Isn't Moonrazor supposed to be looking after them and caring for them? I suppose it gives the toys something to do on the island, but it makes me question what the other toys are being used for. Is Charlie in the Box his jester? Is the cowboy riding an ostrich his messenger? Are the toy soldiers his army in defense? Is the doll his princess? I think Moonrazor's kind of a tyrant in this, and it was a good thing Santa came to take the toys off the island, because Moonrazor isn't around to see them leave. He's probably looking for other misfit toys to be his slaves. I mean, why else did he bring them to the island? In fact, doesn't he want the toys to be off the island? If so, then why is he giving the toys this kind of treatment? I think the toys should be more sad from not just being played with, but from what this flying lion dictator is doing to them. It is a very quick and brief moment, but it would have made the island of misfit toys more depressing to live at if they're not given good living conditions. Look at this, they're all out in the cold and not in the castle that looks like a bunch of towers stuck together. Okay, I may be going a little overboard on this one, but seeing the spotted elephant there in that hat just raises too many questions about King Moonracer, this island, and all the toys. I mean, what was the point of this? And my number one weakest Rudolph moment is... Rudolph and Hermie weren't properly introduced. Now this one is very rarely talked about, and it's so obvious and in front of our noses that it's extremely overlooked. And if you remember the first conversation between Hermie and Rudolph, you realize that they are missing one key ingredient to their introduction. Can you guess what that is? Yes, they never once addressed each other by name or even said hi. They just had this one conversation and then go into song, without saying their names. How did they quickly become friends without knowing each other? Yukon introduced himself well, Sam introduced himself well, even Clarice and Rudolph introduced each other well, so why didn't Hermie and Rudolph do the same? You can't express your feelings and problems without knowing who you met. It's common manners and they forget to do it here. Yes, the special is still enjoyable and timeless, but with all the problems that I have mentioned in this moment here left out the most timeless of dialogue. And having it go unnoticed and very obvious makes it my number one weakest Rudolph moment.
All this negativity is sure making me hungry for something positive. I wonder what I'll do next week. I know! Next week for Christmas, I'll be doing a